So, how to be your own teacher? It's a little bit a tricky title for this class. It's a tricky title because it may attract people who would like to be without a teacher, who would like to do it without a teacher. Right? And I'm not saying they are wrong, because in a way they are right also. But in another way, they are also quite wrong to think that no teacher is needed. It is only the ego who has this problem of having to listen to somebody, of having to accept maybe somebody has a better idea, has more experience. So the idea that you want to somehow yourself find all this knowledge that is in yoga, find all this understanding, develop all these techniques for yourself, is only coming from the ego. What is of course true is that the teacher can do nothing if you are not helping. The teacher is not somebody who tells a story and then you memorize this story and then you are there. No, it is you who has to work with this material. So in that way they are a bit right also to say, it only becomes real if I can myself see it. Only hearing somebody else seeing it is not really going to help me. And that is true up to a point, but it is also wrong in the sense that it's like saying, okay, I want to learn Chinese, but I don't want to have any Chinese teacher. I don't even want to talk to any Chinese people. I don't want to read any Chinese books. I want to learn Chinese all by myself. That is quite ridiculous, of course. And it's the same in yoga. And I've had many cases in my own development where I can say, yes, the teacher was very helpful. Like one time with Harish Johari, I would be with him for some time and then, okay, he had to go. And at the last possible moment, I kind of go to him and say, well, I don't know how I will do all this. I think I lack willpower. I don't have enough willpower to do these meditations and to do these things. How can I develop willpower? So this was like the last minute question. And he said, well, yeah, no problem. You look in my book, Dhanvantari, there's a technique there called Tratak. And you try that, and if you do this, this will help you develop willpower. So I said, okay, thank you. And that evening, I looked in the book and found this technique. It was described there in quite detail with like 2-3 pages, let's say. And so I tried to do it. But for 1 year, I couldn't do it. And I explained a little bit what this technique is. Tratak means gazing. And in this case, it was gazing at a flame. So you take a candle and you have a flame and you look into the flame and you're not allowed to blink your eyes. And because there you go against like this natural tendency of your eyes to blink, you develop willpower. You kind of overcome the automatic responses of your body and your mind and so on. So this was why he was telling me. But the idea is you look into the flame, you don't blink until water comes to your eye, until tears come to your eye. And then you close the eye, and then you look to the third eye, where you will see the after image of the flame. And in that way you will somehow bring some of that energy of the fire to that place, and that will also stimulate the third eye. And that way also a lot of willpower can be gained, because to be able to be centered is very much related to the third eye. And to be able to be centered is the first thing you need if you want willpower. Because if you are not centered, how can you have any will? To will means to direct your energy in a particular point. If you are not one-pointed, you cannot do it. So, but for 1 year I tried. really hard, like every day. And I couldn't do it. Always somehow my eyes would blink before the tears would come. So then the next year I met him again and he said, "Oh, how did it go with your tratak?" And I said, "Oh, Dada, I don't know. This is not for me. I think I can't do it." And he said, "Okay, show me how you do it." So I put the candle and I start doing it. He said, "Oh, you didn't do it right. You didn't read the book right." I went through it so fast. There was one, or actually two details that were there that I didn't even notice. I didn't even bother to go back. I thought, I just do this. And those two details were that the flame has to be here and not there. It has to be on the same level as the eyes. And the distance to the flame should be approximately 30 centimeters. While in my case, it was maybe double that. And that was the only reason why it didn't work. So if he would have been with me, when I started trying this, I would have known immediately. So you have to also see a teacher as somebody who has already gone some way on a path that you also intend to follow. So he kind of knows the way, he knows many details. And at some point, yoga is also about many details. So at least for these details, it is very good to have a teacher. And there is obviously also many other ways in which a teacher can be very helpful. He is like an example of what you want to become. He's maybe not even enlightened or anything like that, but at least he's gone parts of the way. He's learned something. He has something that he has achieved, and this is also what you want to achieve. So this is very good for you to have such an example. Maybe not all the time, but now and then you kind of meet that person, and this will give you faith. Faith in yourself, faith in the path, faith in the teachings. This is very essential. It's very difficult, this game. Once you start learning, for example, how to control mind, how to truly meditate, it's very difficult. Very easy to lose faith. Very easy to think, oh, what they're talking about, I can't do it. So then to see another person who can do it and who is there to help you to also do it is very helpful and good for your confidence. But the most important thing maybe is that a person who has achieved a certain balance also has a certain radiance, a certain, let's say, energy, as an energy field. And this is one of the best things that you can do if you meet some new teacher and you don't really know, is he any good, is he going to help me or not, is that the kind of teacher I need, and so on. Then the best thing to do is to just sit nearby, let the other people do the talking, close your eyes and try to meditate. And if that teacher is really helpful for you, then your meditation will be very easy. Your concentration will be very easy, you will be very calm and satisfied and content. And that will work. So, but that also means that is one of the things the teacher can give you. This kind of radiance, this kind of energy, this kind of environment in which it becomes easier. Like there are many people now in yoga also in the West who say, oh, we don't need to go to India. We already know better than the Indians how to do it. There's no need to go there. But they are totally wrong. Because the moment you get off the plane in India and you start to meditate, it's easier. It's just so much easier there because there is a certain energy there from all these people who have been meditating for thousands of years and who still are meditating. And that energy is there and you can more easily tap into that and you will see. It just is easier. So to have a connection to a person with a certain balance in the energy is very, very helpful for the progress that you want to make. And that works also, we will talk a little bit more later, in quite a magical way, in the sense that once you have that connection with the teacher, you don't really need to be with that teacher to have some of that energy. Because the link is established and through this link some energy comes. So those are the three main reasons, I believe, why a teacher is still very helpful. You are free to do it on your own if you want. Everybody's free. But it'll be easier, it'll be faster if you can work with the teacher and set your ego aside a little bit and accept that you are learning. So, of course, the idea that it is you who has to learn is very right. And the ultimate teacher is the self. Para Brahman, the pure beingness that is inside you, that is the ultimate teacher. That is the ultimate guru. So we say that there is the outer teacher and the inner teacher. And the inner teacher is number one, absolutely. And will attract the outer teacher also. Will help to find the outer teacher. And the outer teacher will do nothing more or less than push you back to the inner teacher. Push you back to the self, always. That is his task. So in that way, sure, it is inside that it has to happen. And that also means that it's all about practice. I mean, we can talk, sure. We can think, we can read books, and that will be helpful a little bit to see things a little differently. But the main thing always is practice. Because only in practice you will really evolve. We still so much have a tendency to think, and this is very natural and very Western also in a way, that we can solve our problems by thinking about them differently. We try to find the solution in our thinking, in our mind. And in a practical sense, this may be true. Sometimes, you're thinking how to get from here to there, and, you use your mind and you Google it or whatever, and you find a way. So that is, in a practical sense, very logical to do. But when it comes to the objectives of yoga, when it comes to letting go of certain blockages inside of you, then you cannot outthink these things. There's different ways to work with it, and that is the process of yoga, and essentially that is the process of meditation, to which all other yoga practices are in a way like a preparation. So that must be very well understood. So if you want to be your own teacher, you have to be a good student. And to be a good student also means that you have to practice as much as you can. And fortunately, there are many things you can practice which don't really consume time. Some practice is done okay on the mat, and for that you need time. But a lot of practice is there in how you live, how you are dealing with life, how you're dealing with other people, how you're dealing with your work and your children and everybody. So there's a lot of exercise to be found there also. So nobody in a way has an excuse not to practice. And it is only the practice which will make the teachings really come true. Like even I teach a class about anger. For about 2 hours, I just go on and on about anger. And one of the things I say there is that anger always comes from unfulfilled expectation. And that whenever you are angry, you can ask yourself, okay, what did I expect? And then you will see that indeed it is this expectation that is at the basis of your anger. And you will see indeed, and that's maybe more important, that when you ask this question and see your expectation, that the anger goes. It's reversed. It's no longer outside that the problem is. You find it in you and you change it and you are free from the anger. So, but I can explain that. I can take 1 minute or 10 minutes or half an hour to explain that. But as long as you don't do that, as long as you don't try it in your own life, it will be meaningless. You will not really understand. It will not become yours. It is only when you do it, and maybe do it a few times, that you see, oh yeah. That link is really there. He wasn't talking bullshit, it's real. I can feel it in myself, and only then this understanding is yours. So practice is the main thing, to bring everything in your personal experience, whether we are talking about chakras or whether we're talking about meditation or about anger or about dharma or any of these things. It's only when you work with them that they will become yours. The teaching, the talking, the reading is only like an introduction, giving you some guidance, go here, go there, do that first, 30 centimeters, just a little help. But if there's no practice, there's nothing. So this is a choice you make at some point, and it's quite natural to resist this whole teaching game. But at some point you understand, okay, this is like a wall you are creating. This is stopping you from learning more. If you are all the time like questioning, do I need a teacher? It's not needed. This wall. And it's also very much to do with your attitude of listening. Like when you are sitting here, you can listen in two ways. You can listen to me, and all the time you are talking to me in your mind. Like whatever I'm saying, you kind of working with that and bringing up your own ideas and seeing, is he right, is he wrong, whatever. Or you can try to listen and not think about it, which is not so easy, but you can at least give it a try. It's a different attitude to try to sit here and just listen and just like absorb. Make sure you like understand what I'm saying. Be attentive. Don't, go somewhere else. But, try to receive it like with an open mind. My teacher used to say, first you eat, then you digest. So here in the class, you eat, you take it. It's yours. It's freely given. You just take it. It's yours. Afterwards, yes. Afterwards, you digest. Afterwards, you have to work with it. Afterwards, you have to think about it. Afterwards, you have to say, well, this I'm not so sure. For me, I don't think this will work. And if you're not so sure, you might just also give it a try. There's nothing wrong, not much time wasted by giving something a try, trying it out. And if it doesn't work for you, yes, sure, drop it, because we're all different. We're all different. So in that way, there are things which I'm telling that are useful for some people and are not useful for others. So in that way, yes, you have to digest, you have to work with it, you have to think about it. But the attitude of a student first is to listen and to absorb and to somehow accept that there is some value, some truth in what the teacher is saying. And then that way you can really absorb it, you can really hear it. You won't miss like half of the class because the other half of the time you're listening to yourself talking in your mind. And that way you can get a lot more out of it. So it's important, and it's also maybe one of the reasons why I picked this subject, because I've seen it in myself. I've wasted a lot of time in resisting this game. It's a waste. It's a waste. Like even with some books. There are some books I read at some point and I felt, no, I don't agree. No. And then maybe 7 years later or 10 years later, I again pick up that book and it becomes like a Bible. It happened to me with the book I Am Dead from Nisargadatta Maharaj. When I was very young, I read it. And it was such a confrontation that, I just couldn't handle it. I just didn't open up enough to kind of see what he was trying to say. And then, 7 or 10 years later, I don't remember exactly, I again picked it up. Actually had nothing else to do. I was traveling and, having to wait somewhere, and this book was like the only entertainment around. So I picked it up again, and wow, I immediately bought it. It wasn't mine, that the one I was reading, so I immediately went to a shop and bought it and read it many, many times over. So this resistance, you have to be aware of it, and then, okay, you can really learn, open-minded, and then see for yourself. Then experience, then work with it, and observe yourself. Observe the truths that have been given in the class in your own life. And then you will better understand them. You will really understand them, and they will become yours. And then, yes, for that, then you no longer need a teacher. But some help in the beginning is needed, and it's important also to understand that teaching happens in I would say, in not such a conscious fashion. Maybe strange to say, but it is said that if you go to the teacher with a cup and you ask the teacher to fill it, then okay, the teacher will fill the cup. But if you go with a bucket, then the teacher will fill the bucket. And if you go with a bathtub, then he'll fill the bathtub. Because the teacher, in a way, if he knows a little bit how to teach, is not limited to his own personality, to his own experience and all that. The moment he himself opens up for the teaching, like the students open up for the teaching, then knowledge comes quite like unconsciously from something greater, from, you can call it the cosmic intellect or whatever, Buddha, whatever. But that is what happens. So really, if you come with a bathtub, it will be filled. That is, what you can expect. So don't come and say, oh, I only want to know this, All the rest I don't want to know. That I want to sort out myself. But this one I've been like struggling with, so please deal with that. That's useless. You open up. You open up. And then there are so many great teachers that can help you also. Yeah. But so this as an introduction, because of course the idea is mostly to talk about what to do when there is no teacher around. Because even if you have one or more teachers, still a lot of the time maybe there's nobody around, and you are on your own in your own life, and you kind of have to do it. And there, of course, it is the self which is your primary teacher. And that should always be understood. The moment that you feel confusion, the moment that you feel that there is a question and you do not see the answer, silence is the only answer that you can give. Only by going into silence, you will find the answer. Because by going into silence, the self will observe, and then when thoughts come back, they will hold the answer. This is the main thing about how to teach yourself. Even things you have never heard about or never been taught about will come to you in that way. Only through your silence. Of course, this is also something to learn. We will talk a little bit more about it. And in this attitude of learning, then everything you meet will be like your teaching or your teacher. It doesn't really matter whether it is a person or a thing occurring, or whether it is a tree or an animal or whatever. Everything will be like bringing you messages, bringing you answers. And I can tell you this can happen in quite a miraculous way, that you feel, oh, I have this kind of question. I go to silence. And then suddenly something happens and you don't immediately see the connection. But maybe 5 minutes later or half an hour later or the next day, you say, but actually that was the answer coming to me. To always, if you have a question, if you feel confusion, first practice some technique. Whatever it is that works for you, breathing, mantra, whatever, go to silence. Then pop the question, and then wait. And then whatever happens, whether it's in your thoughts or around you, something happening or somebody coming in and saying something, the answer will be there. This is like, again, strange story, difficult to believe, but you can always give it a try. And that is the main thing. If you can give it a try, then you will see this works. A little bit dependent, of course, on how good you already are in finding your inner silence. The better you are there, the more easy it will become. Until from that inner silence, words and ideas and understanding will come like in an unstoppable flow the moment you ask the question. That will come very automatically, and that is then when you yourself become a teacher. This is how you become really a teacher. As long as a teacher you still have to kind of create a whole story before you start, and then kind of parrot that story, you're not a teacher. It's only when it comes out naturally, because it comes from inside, that you are a teacher. Anyhow, in the yogic tradition, there are, let's say, schools where one teacher is preferred, and there are also other schools where you can have many teachers. This is your own choice, anyhow. And for example, in the tradition of Harish Johari, it was very normal to have many teachers. Harish Johari had at least like 30 teachers or something. Sometimes he would talk about this one and sometimes about that one. And so he had such a wealth of information from all these sides that was, yeah, very helpful. On the other hand, to have only one teacher for some time at least is also good, because it's a little less confusing, because you get one story, right? And always like the same story, and whatever is added to the story kind of nicely fits into the story, so it's less confusing. And this is anyhow how I felt. I'd met a few teachers, let's say, before Hari Jahari. Then I was 20, I met him. Then for about 19 years, I did not go to any other teacher. Because already what he was giving me was so much that I felt if I go to somebody else, it's just going to get more complicated. Already what he was trying to teach me, what he was telling me to do, was so much that, I really didn't need any other input. But then afterwards, when he left his body, then very easily I turned to other teachers, and I've been very fortunate to meet many other teachers. So it's not like you have to choose this as a philosophy, I believe in this way or that way. It's a little bit how you feel it comes. The first thing is to accept yourself as a student, as a work in progress. That is so essential, even apart from the teaching game, that you can see yourself as divine, while at the same time maybe also being imperfect, a work in progress. And you are perfect in every moment. I can tell you, there's nothing wrong in any moment. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnar Purnamadasyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamiva Vasisyate. That is the main understanding, that everything is perfect as it is. So you are also perfect as you are. But you can also evolve. You are in a process, you are a work in progress. And if you can really, truly, sit in front of a mirror, look at yourself and say, okay, I'm a work in progress. I don't have to expect anything from me that, isn't there at this moment. I am learning and I'm open to learn, and I can learn anything anybody else can learn, because ultimately we are all the same and made of the same source and have the same intellect and the same mind, and all these things are same. Only to accept that you are in a growth, that you are learning, that you are a student, is making it possible to learn, whether it is from a teacher or from a flower or from the sun or whichever is teaching you. This eagerness that we have sometimes to feel like we are already there, you always have to doubt it. This is an eagerness that comes quite naturally again. Sometimes we feel this need to feel like I don't need to learn anymore. I've seen it, I got it. This is natural that it comes, but you always have to doubt it. Because there's always something more to learn. Even for the most enlightened person, there is always something more to learn. That is the truth. And this eagerness only comes out of unhappiness. We all somehow or other come to yoga out of unhappiness. If you would be completely satisfied with life, if you would be completely happy with life, finding everything enjoyable, then you would not be sitting here. It is because sometimes life is not so enjoyable that you start wondering, is there no solution? And that's why you are here. So this unhappiness is from where we start. And then we start and we move forward a little bit, and we learn a little bit, and then at some point we'd like to say, now we got it, So that we feel like this unhappiness story is gone. But it will come back, It will teach you that there's still something to learn. So accept that. That is the most basic thing that will make you into a good student and into somebody who really evolves quite nicely. So, what is actually that which we are trying to learn? It is to be happy whatever happens. Right? That is why we do yoga. And ultimately that means that we like to replace the ego by the self. To put it in a very simple way, the ego is the one who attaches to things, who likes this and does not like that. So that is what we want to stop, and we want to identify fully with the self, for whom everything really is fantastic and perfect as it is, and who is happy always, everlasting, without anything that can touch it. Like the screen in the movie theater always stays white, whatever blood and love and stories come on the screen afterwards, again the screen is white. This is who you are, this is who you also in a way want to be or want to identify with, because you already are, so it's not really a matter of wanting to be. But so this is the path of yoga, this is what is there to learn, and this learning has two basic phases. First phase is to go inside, to learn to go inside, to learn to close out everything which is outside, everything which was in the past, everything which is in the future, your whole personality, all these things, your thoughts, your feelings, to completely get rid of all that, so that inside you can find the self, so that inside the self can come forward, and that you can experience who you truly are, and have this connection. So we call this the finding of heaven inside. And then the second phase is that you come out again, but you bring heaven with you. You bring this feeling with you. You bring this understanding with you. You bring this connection with you, and you try not to lose it. And so that is important to understand if you look at yourself as a student, that this is what you are continuously having to do. And in the beginning of yoga, of course, we mostly have to learn to go inside. In the second part, you could say, then there's more of this bringing outside, because going inside is becoming very easy and becoming quite instant. And then we learn to come outside. And so here there is learning to be done, because these are two paths, the paths to go in and the paths to come out and bring the self with you. And there are billions of paths, billions of ways, billions of details. So there, as I said, even an enlightened person can always learn something new. It's infinite, because then we are talking about energy. Because all this manifestation is only energy. Thoughts are only energy, emotions are only energy. Whatever you see inside is only energy. So to go inside is like following a path of energy. And to bring this energy that is there inside out again is a game of energy. And as I said, there are millions of ways to do it. So in that way, there is a lot that can be learned. But it also is not so very complicated, because you, as an individual, only need one path. Well, let's say you only need one path to go in and one path to again come out. You don't need billions, but you have a choice of billions. So to find a little bit that which suits you most, that maybe require you to, try a little, Bikram yoga, and then, goes for some Tibetan meditation and African dancing, or whatever, you enjoy, whatever seems to help, whatever seems to work. And then at some point you find something, and that is then the only thing you need to learn. And this is also very important to understand if you want to move forward. The moment that you find some kind of technique which seems to really work for you, then you should drop all else. Otherwise you are again wasting time. If you find such a technique, you should drop all else, so that you can really master this technique. This does not happen in half hour, this does not happen in a week or a month. This may take a year or more for you to do that, and this was also how Harijahari was teaching me. Every time when he would leave, he would give me a task for the year to come. This year you will learn this. Like, for example, he would say, this year you will learn to stop breathing for 2 minutes. Or this year you will completely observe ego, mind, intellect. Or this year you will learn to sit in lotus posture for at least 3 hours. Things like that. So that way I could really like focus on that. I would still be doing other things, but I could focus on that and really learn that. And, then yeah, at some point you can. And you have mastered something and you have advanced. And then maybe, okay, once you have mastered the technique, you feel, okay, maybe to go further, I need something more. And then again, you start looking around a little bit, and then you find something which seems to work. Again, you go into that and you learn it properly, deeply. Too much zapping around is a waste of time. Some people, have this tendency these days. There's so much on the market, let's say, in terms of spiritual practices, that they do little dit and little that and little that and little that, and it's okay, it's fun, and you're free, but it's not really good if you want to move forward, especially to reach samadhi. No? If we talk about this way inside, to really reach that insight is called samadhi, the state of total absorption, where you are no longer aware from the outside and are completely inside. For that, you only need one thing. If you want to just use breathing for that, it's fine. You only need the breathing. If you want just use the mantra for that, it's fine. You can just use the mantra. If you want to just sit and not move and not think, that's fine. All these will lead you into samadhi. The question is, okay, one may be easier than another, so you have to try out a little bit. But the moment you find that which for you seems to work, there's nothing else to do. Just devote your time to that. And it's a little boring. That's why we kind of, like to do a lot of things. But that's mind. Understand, that is mind who thinks it's boring. Ego needs to kind of gather the willpower to say, okay, I'll do it. I'll do at least half an hour. I'll do at least 1 hour a day. And then you move forward quite quickly. Quite quickly. If you can be focused, if you can be one-pointed in your practice. And then when it comes to the whole game of like understanding in your intellect, the funny thing is that actually what you need to understand is very simple. The truth about the self, that you are that we are all that in that way we are all connected, that we are all one, and that in this way love is the only true practice, for example, and that just saying Om Namah Shivaya for a very long time will bring you there, is enough. Actually, you don't need any more information than that. Really, it's like in few minutes, the whole philosophy of yoga, all the knowledge of yoga can be brought together. And that is actually the only thing you need to know. All else is just talk. So why is there all this talk? What's the use of it? Well, the problem is these teachings are very simple, like intellectually to understand is very simple. You can explain to a child the essence of you. You'll understand. It's very simple. But it's very hard to accept it. It's very hard to accept it because it goes against the ego. It goes against the individuality. And so the ego from the subconscious mind will continuously question it. And only because that happens, we need all the books and all the stories and more than 30 classes on YouTube are already put. I mean, there's really no need. But there is actually a need because of the ego. So in that way, one of the ways to work with the teachings is repetition. We kind of need to hear the same story over and over and over and over and over again. That is, a little stupid, but it's as it is, So in that way, sure, you read one book and it tells you the same story. In another book, it tells you the same story, but in a little different way, you understand it a little bit from a different angle. And maybe that answers some of the questions or objections that have come up into you. and okay, then you can put these aside and move a little further, and but it'll always be like a game, and the game of repetition is a very well-known technique. Like many of these teachings in ancient India are oral teachings that come in verse form, like the Vedas, etc. They are poetry. They're in verse form. And so students would be required to really memorize them, to really know them by heart. This was in part because this way the information or the understanding would not get lost, because there was no way to write it down. It was before people were writing down things. But this was also because this is a very good way to learn. Repetition, endless repetition, so that it becomes very clear. It's like an imprint on your subconscious mind. In your subconscious mind, there are so many concepts, so many ideas that are related to blockages, frustrations, desires, all these things. They completely color like the encyclopedia of the universe that you have inside of you. And by taking the teachings and repeating them and repeating them and repeating them, you kind of overwrite what is written there in your inner encyclopedia. And that way, slowly, slowly, the, let's say, wrong concepts, there's no real right and wrong in this, but okay, the less useful concepts get overwritten with, suitable, workable concepts like, let's say, the koshas, the chakras, the 7 steps towards enlightenment, all these things, then become helpful, because the moment a question comes, then immediately you can, go there. So this is also what Harish Johari would kind of, in his own way, try to make happen in the way that, we taped many of his classes, and I would listen to these tapes many times until almost I could say it from memory. Like I remember the first series of classes where I really did that was the Rasas class, because he ordered me to write this book about it. So I felt, okay, I really have to learn this. And I remember I learned or heard these tapes like more than 15 times, over and over and over and over again, until the knowledge is there. So these things are quite good, and these days with YouTube, it's quite easy to a little bit, again, let's say you have an anger issue and it's not so easy for you, and you've heard the anger class, well, maybe you need to just listen again, maybe you can also find another good book on anger, if you like, it's the same thing. But, somehow or other to repeat it, until it becomes so clear, you cannot anymore make the same mistakes. You're not allowed by your own understanding. In this way, typing out also classes, I have done also a lot. Is also a very good exercise, because then it becomes visual, and you really have to listen very, very carefully to correctly type it out. So it's a way of learning, and that is part of it. Is the more intellectual part is the less important part, much less important part compared to the part of practice. But it's still a part in which you can, not just spend some nice time with the truth, if there's no teacher around, but also really learn and change. This is part of that. Now, satsang means to be together with the truth. Usually means to be together with a teacher or with somebody, with a lot of wisdom. And that is satsang, and satsang is absolutely, advisable in this game. There's so much untruth out there. There's so much ignorance out there. If you have to live and, deal with it, then sometimes to be able to withdraw from that and come to a place or a person, who speaks a little bit more sense is very good, very helpful. And so if the person is not available, then a book can be available, or YouTube can be available, or whatever. Even I myself sometimes like to have a little look at one of my YouTube classes, honestly. Because, sometimes even myself, I don't exactly remember how it came out. And then I say, oh, yeah, right. It's funny. But it's useful. It's like the subconscious mind always has this incredible way of coming up with absurd notions and criticism and questions. And it finds them in every corner. And so to erode that and to replace that is part of the game. And it's only the start, but at least it helps you to start thinking more correctly, more in a straight line, more in accordance to what you have learned. And then you can also move more in a straight line, and then the practice is there. Then there's not too much confusion. Now, if you are thinking, oh, maybe today, or let's just say I should fast. It's just one of those practices that you can do. Fast on nothing, or fast on something, or whatever you feel. But of course there is some resistance, because it's not such a nice thing to do. Huh? You like to eat. So then subconsciously there will come some questions. Yeah, is it good, to fast, or shouldn't you do, at least eat something? Or the mind will come up with all kinds of nonsense. So at that time you just have a look at the book or whatever it is that is your basis on how to fast, and you see, okay, this way, okay, I won't die after not eating for 4 days, so it's okay, So that's basically what all this knowledge is about. The real growth is in the subconscious mind. And I say this many times, but this is just because I think this is something very essential. So I repeat it. Because there is, again, a lot of resistance against this idea that the real growth is in the subconscious mind. We still prefer the real growth to be in the conscious mind, because then we have control, right? Or at least a feeling of control. But to truly accept, to truly understand that the true growth is in the subconscious mind, it's a little hard, because we have no control. But we do have control in practice. That's where we stop thinking we can outthink ourselves, where we stop thinking and doing. And that is really what it's all about. And then there is what we call sadhana on one side and dharma on the other side. And dharma always comes first. Dharma means that you are in harmony with everything. Because if you are not in harmony with everything, then you can never find peace in your meditation or whatever. If there's still anger between you and your husband or something, or dishes are still smelling badly in the sink, then how can you really meditate? It's not possible. No? So first you do kind of your duties, you make sure everybody's okay, everything is okay. Don't have to go too far in that also, but the basics should be okay. That is doing your dharma. And then once you have time more, you do some sadhana. Sadhana, spiritual exercise. And as I've said, there can be so many. Whatever you stop when it is something that you normally do, whenever you stop doing it, it is a sadhana. If you stop moving and just trying to sit in one place, even maybe while watching TV, why not? Then this is a sadhana. You say, okay, this is a very nice movie coming on, I'm going to watch it because, nice movie is a nice movie. But while looking at this movie, I will sit here, I will not move. This is very good sadhana. Very good for your control, very good also to a little bit gain more flexibility here and stuff. So this is just one example. If you're used to eating sweets, okay, no problem, but still you might say for 1 month I won't eat any sweets. At least then I know I can do without sweets. Then after that month, again, I can have some sweets whenever I feel like it, because I know I have it under control. So all these things you can do. There's very nice games. Once you actually start on this, there's no end to it, because there's a lot of things that you are used to doing or used to having. And in that way, yeah, sure, you can do sadhana, and you probably start with the things that are not so difficult. And then after a while, you may find some things which really are difficult, and then feel, okay, now I want to attack that one. And in that way, even me, I still have a few things I, still might need to do some sadhana to get a little bit more control. That we all have. Again, there you have to accept. You are a work in progress. There's no hurry, really. There's just progress. As long as you are there as a student and doing some sadhana. Actually, after a while, it's like 24 hours. 24 hours a day sadhana. Because already, like, to just deal with, let's say, work and other people's problems and, the problems that they also create for you is already a very good sadhana. No? That is already quite an exercise to always stay calm and loving and open without, people making abuse of you, still being firm and, like strong. It's already sadhana. No? And then next to that, there's so many like small sadhanas that you can do with your little addictions or your little other attachments. No? Sadhana means to let go of some particular attachment. This search for knowledge, for understanding, as I said, is good, is about repetition, but it's also good to understand and accept that at each moment not all answers are needed. In that way I can say, for example, that nowadays I have this teacher in Nepal since 5 years who is teaching me quite new things, of which I actually know Harish Johari could have taught them to me also, because he also had that knowledge. But he didn't. He didn't even mention it. Only through some other people and some things I see in his books, I just see, but he has this knowledge. Why did he never bring it to me? Well, quite simply because it was not yet the time. I first needed to learn some other things before I was ready for that. And so then now, okay, I have another teacher, get some more of that, and I have again something more to work with. So that is also important. There are so many things. Especially with this. As I said, to go inside, you only need one thing. So little zapping around to find that which suits you best, and then you find it, and okay, that's from, that moment onwards what you will do, to go inside. But to bring outside that peace, that bliss, that love, that power also, that energy, that is endless, that is magical, miraculous, and then there's so much to learn that it's like unbelievable. I feel myself totally ignorant still in that level. Like I've only learned a small fraction of that. With some of the people I've seen in India, I understand. They are playing on a very different level. So, okay, Monday maybe also I'll get there. But so that means today I'm still ignorant. To accept that you are ignorant is very good. Then you can learn. And to accept that not everything needs to be learned right now is also good. In a way, you can say that learning happens in a spiral motion. So that means that at some point you kind of reach something, and then you feel, okay, now I'm okay. Like because of what you learned before, and you reach a certain balance, and you're okay. And maybe for one day you're okay, or for 1 week you're okay, or 1 month you're okay, or even 1 year you're okay. And then suddenly something will happen and you say, no, I'm no longer okay. And it doesn't mean you've lost that which, you've learned. It just means you reached another level. There's something more to learn. A new problem has come up. I also explained that in relationship to the subconscious mind. If everything which is in your subconscious mind would come out in just one moment, you would explode. You would go crazy. It's quite impossible. So the things that are now, like, let's say, bothering you, certain feelings or whatever that are bothering you, they are the things that are at this moment coming out of your subconscious mind. And so then you can learn to deal with them, to accept them, to kind of work around them, find a solution, and let go. And then you'll feel a little relief for a while. And then something else comes like to the surface and says, well, and what about me? And then you say, oh, this is new. So I have again to find a solution, again to work with something. So that was what I mean with learning in spirals. Like every time you make a circle in this spiral, you kind of reach a new level, but it's quite endless. No? There's always something new coming up. I mean, I'm not saying that is endless, because at some point, sure, the subconscious is really pure and the self can shine through without any obstruction. And that is when, we say the person is enlightened. But we talked about that already. It's a little tricky concept in its own way also. Now, another subject which is here is that if you are on your own, but you do have some sort of a connection with a teacher or with more teachers, then this faith that you have in the teacher, this love that you have for the teacher, is also very helpful. I already said before, it is helpful because it gives you confidence. No? But it goes quite a bit beyond that. No? And it can be a little bit confusing. Let me first say that. It can be a little bit confusing to feel love for the teacher, but it comes very naturally. At some point, I was feeling so much love for Harish Johari, I started doubting if I was gay or something. Like, I just wanted to be with him. I even, wanted to. He was just so nice, and so great, and so powerful, and so knowledge, and, this is how I felt. And I really thought, what's happening to me? I'm changing or something. But this is a different kind of love. This is not the kind of love, between a man and a woman, or two men or two women. This is a different kind of love between a student and a teacher. And it is good also a little bit to understand it so that you can work with it. Because for many people, this is again an obstruction. This love, as I said, it can be confusing. If if it is a woman like falling in love with a man who is the teacher, or the other way around, or whatever, it can be confusing because maybe the teacher is not interested. No? In that way. No, he's interested in this love as a teacher, but not as a person, not as an individual. Because the teacher truly is not an individual. The moment he starts teaching, he is no longer an individual. There may still be some of his character there, still some of his history there, sure, that comes out, in his language, in all these things. But truly, a teacher is no longer an individual. So that which is loved at that moment is not the person. It is the teachings. You take away these teachings from the teacher, and the love is gone. Then just an ordinary person is there. Then maybe, he's too small or too thick or, too old, too young, whatever, Then you look differently. But he can look any way, or she can look in any way that you would normally not at all find attractive. But because the teaching is there, you feel very attracted. So this can be a little bit confusing, but you just, set that aside, understand it, and say, no, this is just a different kind of love. And a love which can be very strong and can be, as I said, very, very helpful. Because there is a kind of, how would I say, surrender in that love. Always in love there is a kind of surrender. And through this surrender you can learn so much more easily. You can understand so much more easily. And then whenever you are not with the teacher, this love will keep you in contact with the teachings. Because when then you miss this teacher, you will at some point understand that the only way to get rid of that feeling, which can be really strong, like in a normal love, if your lover is gone for half a year, you miss this love. So the same way you miss the teacher. But that also brings in you a great power, because then you realize that the only way to kind of get rid of this feeling of missing the teacher is to become like the teacher. To, have this same quality that he has or she has. And in that way, it can be a very great power. And especially for me, after Harish Johari left his body, the first week or so, I felt like devastated. I felt I lost like my dad or something, or at least somebody very important. And then I kind of could come out of that by understanding this very profoundly, that which I was missing was not the man. It was really the teacher. And that the only way that I could bring him back was to become like him. And that is when I, in a way, really started practicing. I mean, I've been doing a lot of practice already, but still that kind of made a big change. So this love can be very powerful. And also, as I said, in a very magical way. Because we are really all connected in the, let's say, common mind field. And I talked about that more in the class on Tantra, but if there is a love relationship between student and teacher, then that connection is much more strong. Anyhow, if there is some kind of connection, then there is a connection. So in the common mind field, there can be kind of a help. But if the love is there, the help can be so much more, because the love permits the help. And to understand properly how this works, I have to maybe give a few examples. Like, some people, for example, they see my class on YouTube and then they feel, oh, I have so many questions, I want to write some letter or message in Facebook. And then they start writing and asking the questions, and then they feel they already have the answer. And then again they delete it, and they're like, And then, oh, this question. And then they come, this question, and they ask, and they don't finish it because they already get the answer. And I have no idea that this is happening, but people are telling me this quite frequently. So you have to understand what I'm saying now about the common mind field as something in which the teacher is not personally involved. Like I've also explained that whenever I start the class, I ask Ganeshji for some help to remove all obstacles, no? Like it's common in India. And I also ask my teachers to help me, and actually I ask them just teach through me. No? So that me, myself, as a person, I have nothing to do with it. I don't feel restrained or shy or anything. It's just happening. So what I'm saying there is not that this is happening in any conscious way, that, let's say, the soul of Harish Johari is hearing me asking this question and is, like looking over my shoulder and whispering things in my ear. Now you have to say this, now you have to say that. It's not working like that. It is working like subconsciously. Because in the subconscious, we are all linked. This also has many other stories, but we are all linked in the subconscious mind. And through this link, the teaching can happen. And so in that way, whenever you are alone, without the teacher, and feeling that you have a question, maybe you are in a difficult situation and you really have no idea what to do with it. And you need an answer, but the teacher you cannot reach, or you cannot reach anybody whom you feel can give you this answer. Then the thing to do is to go to silence and then picture the teacher in your mind and ask the question, and again go to silence. And then the first thing that will come will be the answer. And this works very, very well, if the love is there. If the love is not there, it can still work. If you feel, oh, he's not a bad teacher, but I don't really feel like anything particular here, but okay, then it can still work. But it will work more easily, much better, if the love is there, and it will then also work even without you asking. And I've had many of these experiences with Harish Johari and other teachers, that I felt that I was getting some help, that suddenly some understanding or some opportunity or something came. And yeah, I realized that this came through them. And not because I particularly asked for it, but just because there is a link, there is a love, there is a permission. On the level of the subconscious mind, we are very aware of how karma works. And the main thing that one can never do if he wants to avoid bad karma is to do anything against anybody's will. So if a person wants to remain unhappy and is not asking for any help, then the teacher will not give any help, will not really give any advice, because that person has the right to remain unhappy. Only if the question comes, oh, please help me, I feel sad, what should I do? Then the teacher can help. So also on the subconscious level, this is true, and even much more so. On the subconscious level, the soul of Harsh Johari and many other teachers, they are there for me. They will help me because my love allows it. If that love would not be there, they will be a lot more like restrained in what kind of interference that they can give. And that then, of course, also connects to the spiritual world in the sense of the other souls and beings that are there, and that can also be themselves students belonging to the same lineage, or can be themselves teachers. And they can then also be part of this game, part of this help. It's mysterious how all this works. But certainly also the spirit world has some role there to play. And in that way, again, to have some sort of practice, even if it's just 1 minute a day, where you say, oh, please, all the good energies around me, please help me to learn and to grow and to become a better person. That is giving them the permission. And as I say, you have to believe these things. It's hard. I resisted it for like very long time, until I thought, okay, let's just try and started doing these things and then see, things much more rapidly kind of happen and come, and how is there. There are many stories like that also in the Vedas. Like there are many stories in the Vedas or in other old scriptures where there is somebody who wants to be the student of a teacher, but the teacher refuses. Teacher has a right to refuse for whatever reason. Maybe it's a stupid reason, like he believes this person is of the low caste, for example. This would happen in the stories, and then this person was not allowed to be a student. Only Brahmins were allowed to be students, for example. Or maybe the teacher said, I don't want any students. I have, enough trouble on my own. Or I only want one student, or whatever, so these things are there. And so then in many of these stories you will find that there is a student who is like still very much wanting to learn from this teacher, that he says, well, you don't want me, I don't care, but anyhow I am becoming your student. And they usually then like have a picture or something of this teacher, and they worship this picture and they ask this picture to help. And then there are actually many stories in which these people evolve miraculously and become great, whatever, maybe archers. Also, there's a story like that in the Mahabharata, warriors or yogis or whatever, even though they have not had the teachings. Somehow it came to them, because they had the love and the devotion, and the permission was asked, please teach me. And this was very real and true. And even though the teacher did not want to do it with his conscious mind, subconsciously he had no choice. As I said before, the teacher is not the one who decides what is being said or what kind of teaching is given. This comes automatically, this comes naturally, this comes from somewhere else. This does not come from a person. This comes from a common understanding, which is there in the common mind field. So if a student really is there and says, oh, I want to learn, then it will happen even if the teacher is not agreeing to teach. And I can tell another story of my own life there, is that one day I was teaching in Shivananda Ashram in the Bahamas. And Shivananda is one of the great teachers of the past century. But I never met him, and I never really read anything that he'd written or anything. I didn't really have any connection with him, but these people asked me to come and teach in the Bahamas, so I thought, okay, why not? Nice holiday. And I went there and I was teaching. And so I was there for like 10 days. And in the end of my journey there, I had to wait for the boat, because actually this is on an island. So I had to wait for the boat to bring me from the island to the airport. And near the place where the boat comes, there's this little house. So I sit in this house, and in this house there was a picture of Shivananda. And so yeah, somehow I was just waiting, I was just staring at this picture. And I had a kind of experience. I can't really say what it meant or what was happening, because I don't really remember. But the one thing which happened is that from that time on, from the moment when I stepped into the boat until I landed in Brussels, I was in one of the most spiritual states I've ever been. I was completely quite unaware of whatever was happening around me, still functioning quite naturally, but somehow totally in bliss. I was making connections with all kinds of people. It was very strange. I don't remember a lot of it, but I remember it was quite something. And one of the most, let's say, egoless states in the waking state that I've ever experienced. And I'm sure it came from him. And it came from him because I was there, I saw his picture, maybe I was impressed, maybe I said, oh, thank you for, something like that I did. I said, thank you for letting me teach here and, for helping me. And, I'll be back, something. I don't know, but it happened. And for more than 12 hours, I was completely in a state of bliss. And actually missed my plane also. But that was all not a problem. First had to fly to America, Atlanta, I think. And then in Atlanta, I had to have a connection, and I had a few hours to get this connection, so there was really no problem. But somehow I missed it because I was way out. But then they somehow still found another plane and got me here. It's like quite a miraculous thing, but I'll always remember it. And since that time, I have a connection with Shivananda, even though I've never met him. I still haven't read any of his books. I actually, for the moment, don't really read books. So, but I still feel this connection, and I have his picture. And I say hello on a regular basis. So that you can do. And that I do also with Ramana Maharishi, whose books have really been like such a great help, and with Nisargadatta Maharaj. They are all in my meditation room, and I say hello to them every day. So this is really part of what you've gotten yourself into. This is really a learning, and it all depends on what permission are you giving. And this permission, you don't have to sign a document or anything. The only thing you have to do is love. To love the teacher because of the teachings that he is representing. Not because of the person that he is, because I don't know these people. I never met them. But I can love them because of the teachings that they represent. So, one says that the teaching tradition is Sanatan Dharma. Sanatan Dharma is the eternal, original, universal teaching lineage. This is another name actually for the word Hinduism, but a much older name and a much more true name, because the word Hinduism is linking the whole thing to the Indus Valley, and that is just something outsiders did. But from the point of view of the Hindus, they are not actually Hindus. They are Sanatan Dharma. They are universal, original, eternal, ever adapting, ever changing, and always the same. So that is what you are part of, and the moment you open up to it, you will get help. Even if you are standing on an uninhabited island somehow, it does not matter. You will always get the help. All you need to do is love the teachings, open your mind, not resist it, and whatever you get, you try to practice. In life, on your yoga mat, or whatever. That is how you can really be your own teacher, even though that is becoming like a little bit a strange way to look at it now. The idea, am I a teacher, am I a student, are only of the ego. They are completely irrelevant in the whole story. Sometimes somebody acts as a teacher, sometimes somebody acts as a student. That is all. That is what is called the student-teacher leela, no? The guru leela. And it is just a play, just something happening. But, it's nothing real. It's nothing to do with the personalities. We are already all where we have to be. We only don't really realize it. And that's the only little game that we are playing here, and that you can play in your life, so that you can be more happy whatever happens. And it's still your choice. You don't have to be happy whatever happens. But if that is what you like, then that you can get just by opening up. It's really that easy. I'm not saying you have to love everybody who believes he is a teacher. Because as you say, he's a narcissist. That is nobody who can teach you. Because the understanding, the true knowledge, only comes to the one who at least temporarily can drop the ego. Who at least temporarily can forget who he is. Who at least temporarily can forget his name even. Then the teaching can come. Mm-hmm. So enlightenment is no requirement, but a little bit of that must be there. So if you say he's like very ego-centered person, even if he has acquired some knowledge, some techniques, some things, maybe he can stand on his head for 3 hours. That just requires willpower. Mm-hmm. And okay, it will give him some practical knowledge, but for the rest, not much can be gained from that person. And it may be indeed quite dangerous to like love this person or get very attached to this person, because a love connection is very strong and is not easily cut. Once you create it, it takes time to again, be removed, which is also why, like, if you've been in a love story and it ends, that for a long time you still feel like, connected, because you are. Only slowly that connection goes. So in that way, sure, as I said, the best thing to do when you are with a new teacher and you kind of don't know if you can trust them, is close your eyes, try to meditate. If you feel it's working better than at home, then you have found something. If it's not working better than at home, what's the use? If it's worse than at home, sure, you don't need to stay, right? Because the practical knowledge is very little important. And to get that, you don't need to love. You only need to pay. That's all. In a way, when people ask me sometimes why I give these teachings for free, because it's nothing very special, but it's also not so common. I have my own personal reasons. Like, I don't want to make things complicated. It just makes it easy. Whoever is there is fine. I don't have to think about it. And I can make my money in a different way. I find that more easy. So that is my personal reason. But apart from that, I feel that only in this way I can really let this flow happen. Like, I feel if I would be in a different relationship here, like you are clients or something, it wouldn't work for me in the same way. So in that way, it's also related to that. And I'm not saying that this is true for everybody who is asking money, because there's so many teachers who really have made a living out of it, and there's nothing wrong with that. Don't misunderstand. But I started teaching in an ashram in India because I was told to by one of my teachers, or two. And this was, freely happening. There was no money involved or anything. And I very much enjoyed it. And since that time, I always felt, if I turn this into like a profession, I'll lose it somehow. And that's why I have not done it. So, but it's just one part. I mean, if I would be making a profession out of it, I probably also would say my way is the best way. This is not the only reason. They also really believe in it, usually. And that is because that is the way they have followed. But the truth is, of course, different. There is no best way. That is true for everybody. For everybody, it's personal. It's like we all want to reach the same goal. And in that way, you might think there is a best way to reach this goal. But this goal is not in any particular place. It's in here. And the problem is we're all coming like from a different way, from a different direction, from a different place to that place. So we all kind of need different techniques. Like this has been very well explained, and actually anybody who knows the basics of the yoga philosophy in the Vedas will never say this yoga is the best yoga. This is completely against the teachings, because in the teaching is very clearly explained that for a person who is more emotional driven, then you have bhakti, chanting mantra, bhajan, puja, all these things, helping others, hugging, this is what works. And then for people who are more intellectual, more thinking, there is jnana yoga, there's a lot of reasoning and, reasoning the ego away. This is jnana yoga. And then for people who are like more active, wanting to do something, then there is physical practice, and there is karma yoga, trying to help other people and getting rid of the ego in that way. So that is very well described, and what is also very well described is that this is of course not like people can be put in one of those three categories, but we all have a mixture of these three things, so we find our own mixture of the yogas that respond to that. And that we usually then find in a particular tradition, which has a mixture which kind of, suits us. It's also true that these three things are the three things that we can do. Like we can only think or feel or act. And so when we think, we try to think the truth, jnana yoga. When we feel, we try to feel love, bhakti yoga. When we act, we try to act in selfless service, karma yoga. So in that way, for all it is there, but in different mixtures, in different recipe. But what I said about you only need one technique to reach samadhi is very important. Very important. I mean, we can look in Ashtanga Yoga and there we get like 8 steps. And sure, that also works. I'm not saying it's wrong. But you don't need the 8 steps. Just one. And just stick to that one. And it's only because that is very difficult that, there's a sequence created to make it more easy. You move from here to there, and then from there to there, and from there to there. But actually, you don't need to do that. Just, for example, the mantra, or just stopping breath will be enough. You stop breath long enough, you have to disappear. No way around it. But it's very hard to do that. So that is why usually what we teach people is this gliding motion, this slowly sinking into meditation, where first you make it a little bit more attractive for mind. So mind gets engaged, mind already gets a little bit more like calm and benefit and harmony, and then slowly you come to that point where you are only focused on one thing, and then you stay on that one thing. So that one thing is actually all you need. If you have enough faith, conviction, willpower, then you just take that, you stay there, Om Namah Shivaya, for 20 hours, and you'll be in Samadhi. No? So it's good to a little bit look around, but there's no need to try out everything. Because one might say that there is a yoga like for every yogi. That is one of those expressions, but that does not mean you have to go and find it. You can also just find something which feels kind of okay and then go for it, because that will do it. Like just imagine in the old days, people couldn't travel with airplanes, around the globe. Even traveling 20 kilometers was difficult, and some people would never travel more than 50 kilometers in their life. No? So then if one teacher was only there in the village and he was teaching mantra yoga, then everybody would use mantra yoga. And some people would find that more easy, some might find it more difficult, but all would succeed. Same if there would be a teacher that only teaches pranayama, or even pranayama asana combination in hatha. Then that would be there. So that was what you could learn. I was very lucky, because at the time when I met Harish Johari, there was not many other teachers, and he was such a multidisciplinary guy, wrote many different books, really could master so many different things and knew so many different techniques. So from him I could learn so many different things and then pick what would work for me at a particular time. That was quite exceptional. Very often you will find a teacher, he has only one particular technique or maybe a few steps, and that is what he teaches. But these days there's unfortunately too much marketing involved in the whole story, and you have to be aware of that. And there's only one person who can decide what is the best yoga, and that is you. If you feel attracted, you try it out. If it works, okay. If it doesn't, okay. You don't have to get stuck. First of all, there's no saying that you need a teacher. As I explained, in many traditions, there are many teachers. Some traditions, there's only one teacher. In other traditions, one person will have many teachers. And in that way, even the tree, the flower, anything can be your teacher and you can learn the moment that you have this attitude of learning. The moment that you look at a person, at a teacher or at a tree as something from which you can, that you open, that you don't immediately start with your own stories, that you open there. So this is the one thing. Now, this love connection that you say that you've never felt to any teacher, this may have different reasons also, and I cannot say. But one reason that might be there is that you already have such a love connection with the teacher, but he is no more there. That is quite possible, quite common.
No more there.
Yes, that in another life, past life, you had such a connection, and this is very strong connection, and in such a way that it has become a little bit exclusive. And I would say that is probably why you have not felt, because I have the feeling you have seen many teachers, you have traveled, you have seen many people who really are quite spiritually evolved beings. If you do not feel such an attraction to them, it's probably because your heart is already somewhere else. Like if a man truly loves his wife, then anybody can walk by, he will not feel any attraction because his connection is made. Same way it can happen with a teacher. So this is one possibility. I cannot say if it is true, but definitely this is one possibility. If you yourself feel that you really have been open enough, egoless enough in front of any teacher that you have met, if you feel that you really have done that, then the reason why it didn't happen is probably because there is already a connection and it is so strong and it is helping you, and that way you are learning. So you should not feel that what the others are saying, oh, you do need a teacher or something. is bothering you. As long as you do not feel this connection, what can you do? Well, I'm not saying anybody here that you have to go out and as fast as possible find some guru and throw yourself at their feet, whether they you feel it got attraction or not. No, this attraction should be there anyhow, otherwise you will not do it. But at some point it happens, you do it. And maybe it's because of the lineage to which I belong through Harish Johari, that after he left, I've found it very easy to kind of recognize him or what he represents in many other teachers, and I very easily bow down to them and accept them completely and love them completely. But we are all different, so I cannot say. For most people who regularly come to my classes, these classes may be a little bit less needed, although everybody also, in their own life, they are alone at home. But I really wanted to make it for the people who watch on YouTube, because they have not so much, possibility to meet me or ask me questions or anything. So that really get a little bit idea how to deal with it. And it does not really matter so much which teacher you find. I'm sure in any part of the world there are so many good teachers who can really help you on the essential level. Even maybe they don't have a lot of knowledge or cannot give long talks like I'm quite capable of, but it's not that which is so important. It is on the energy level, it is on the feeling level. Like my grandmother, she did not really have such a big knowledge, but she had the essence. And already there as a child, I learned so much. So in that way, it's about opening up and having faith and acceptance and loving the teachings.